Hello, so this is a review of a Sharp cooker, and the model number is KF-66DIDD04 IM1I, and then the EN on the end means it's the English version. The I before the hyphen EN means it's got the induction hob. If it has a K here in the model number, it means it's the ceramic hob version. And then there's the colour code before the I, which is either M for metal, so that's like a stainless steel finish, BH for black, or WH for white. So here's the cooker, and it's the first time I've had an induction hob, and it's really good. It's so fast to boil. It boils something in about 30 seconds. You do have to have the right pans though. You can test with a magnet, where if your pan's compatible then it will be magnetic. I chose this model because it was supposed to have a fully functional timer. We'll come on to that later. And also it has physical knobs to control the hob, whereas lots of the induction hobs it's all on a touch controls up here, which I don't think is as good. So you can see here, it's telling me as soon as I turn one of the plates on, it's giving me the temperature setting on each plate. So I'm turning that knob up now and it's going up, and then eventually it's got a P setting, which is like a boost. Now you'll notice, because I haven't got a pan on, after a while it will detect there that there's no pan on, which is what that funny symbol means. Then when I turn it off, if it had heated up, then it has H in the position of the pan. The only touch controls for the hob are these clock and plus and minus, which are to automatically turn the ring off after a certain amount of time, and that applies to the last one that you've adjusted the temperature of. I don't think that's a very major feature that I'll be using. Then on the left hand side you've got the cooker control knobs. The left hand one does the top oven. In here, here's the top oven, relatively small, and it has a temperature for the conventional convection oven, which goes round to about 200 degrees max. Then it has a setting that has just the top elements on, which it talks about in the book when that might be useful. And then it has two different grill settings which don't have any controls over them. They're either a low grill or a high grill. It's got sort of like a twin element in there. So the low grill just has half the element on, and the high grill has both elements on. And then the main oven, we've got a temperature control going right up to about 250 degrees. And we've got the function selector for the main oven, which has a defrost function which just runs the fan with no heat, fan oven only, convection oven only, and that's symbol by the convection oven means it's the setting for the vapor clean function, where you put a tray of water in it and put it on about 75 degrees on the conventional oven, and it's supposed to loosen the dirt off because it hasn't got any actual non-stick finishes in it. It hasn't got any of those sort of rough finished sides that burn. Automatic catalytic, is it? Anyway, it doesn't have that, but this is their system. Haven't tried it yet. So we've got conventional, then we've got fan with the conventional elements, then off again. There's no grill in the bottom oven on this model, or any of these Sharp models. By the way, these Sharp cookers are all made by Vestal, who seem to make a lot of the own brand, like Hisense and Kenwood's. They also are made by Vestal. Then in the middle we've got the timer, and this is where the fun starts, and really why I'm writing this review. It's because I had great problems finding an oven with a fully automatic programmer timer thing. And my mum had said this was a problem when she got a new cooker a few years ago. And I didn't really believe her. I thought, oh, she's just trying to buy something that's too cheap. And indeed, lots of models, there's a version with and without the screen and the timer functions. But when I looked into it, it was more complicated than that. Because you get some that have a digital clock, which is just like a minute minder and doesn't control the oven at all. And then lots of them also, you find that they might be able to turn the oven off after a certain duration, but it's not fully automatically programmable. You can't set the start time and the end time, or the end time and duration, something like that, so you can leave it for the day. I don't know why this is. Maybe it's a safety thing that some countries have legislated so you can't have a cooker timer, or perhaps it's concerns about people leaving food in the oven all day, potentially breeding bacteria. Anyway, it seems to be really difficult to get a fully programmable oven anymore. And I looked at some AEG ones. They were the ones which you could get with or without the display on them. And when I looked at the instruction book, it said that you could only set the duration. You couldn't tell it to turn on at a certain time, just to turn off after a certain time from this point in time. And I looked at a Kenwood dual fuel one with an induction hob with a gas hob and electric ovens, and that again had a bit of a thing like this on it with the touch buttons. Very similar, in fact. In fact, it is made by Vestal. And again, you could only set the duration. Then I found this Sharp one, which I didn't know was Vestal at the time. And I looked at the instruction book for that. Yes, it has a fully automatic mode for the oven, so that was the one to choose. Even though it seemed a bit weird that Sharp only make this one model of cooker, and there's very little information on it. So it arrived, and I plugged it all in, wired it all in, and set the clock like it describes in the manual. It came with a printed manual, which looks a bit sort of on very cheap paper. Set the clock, which is the first thing you do. Then how to play with it. Yes, here's where you set the duration. Now I want to go to the next menu item to set the end time, as described on the PDF manual I downloaded before I bought it. And it went back to the clock again. And then I went around the menus again and again. Yes, it only had the clock, the minute minder, and the duration timer. Didn't have an end time. I thought that's very odd. Oh, I must be missing something of how to get into that menu. So I opened the printed manual, and oh dearie me, it's different from the PDF on the Sharp website. And it only has a duration timer, semi-automatic time adjustment cooking period. Then in the PDF it goes on to describe, sorry I'm turning 2 pages at once there, so at the bottom, semi-automatic time adjustment cooking period, and then in the PDF it's got 2 more sections which are semi-automatic end time and fully automatic. And they're not in this manual. How crazy. And then I thought, oh well, never mind. Not too much of a problem, I suppose. I was a bit disappointed since I'd spent so long choosing a cooker that would do this. Then I hadn't set the clock properly. I just shoved it on a random time. So I then thought, how do you set the clock? And nowhere in the manual to describe how to set the clock other than turning when you first turn the machine on. So I had to work it. Well, I think I found it by accident when I was playing with it. So I've written down here. So it says time adjustment. Following power connection, the symbol A and 00 will flash. Press mode for 2 seconds to deactivate the key lock. And then adjust the time while the dot is flashing. But how do you get back into that mode once the time's been set? You have to hold down plus and minus until the dot flashes. Oh yes, this is how I found that, because when I was reading the section on changing the tone. So I found by accident, if you press and hold plus and minus, the dot starts flashing, and then you can use plus and minus to set the clock, and then mode to get back to normal again. Then we've got another section here, which doesn't work as described in this manual. Press plus and minus keys and the dot will start flashing. Well, on this model that I received, you have to press and hold minus until ton 1, 2 or 3 is displayed, and then you press minus to change the tone, and it changes like from a high beep, mid beep, low beep. Anyway, so that's the first part of the story. I was generally very happy with the cooker. Very fast induction hob. The oven all works as it should. I've had an oven thermometer in it, and maybe it's slightly higher than it should be, but certainly not really a problem. And then on eBay, I noticed that someone was selling off a control panel for one of these cookers. And I thought, I wonder if it's an older one which has got the different timer on it, which has the fully automatic cooker timer on. And first I put in quite a low, it was on a fixed price, but it had a make an offer thing, and I went about £10 lower than it was. I think it was on for £30. I offered them £20, and no take. So I then went up a bit, and they did accept my offer. So I thought, well, it's a bit of a punt. It's probably the same as the one that's on there. But then it arrived. It's in the stainless steel finish, and it is used. The picture didn't really show how grotty it was. It has got some rust marks. I was wondering whether the cooker would look quite nice with the black and stainless steel, but since it's got spots of rust on, I've decided not to. And if you go around the back, the timer slides out of the middle section. So you press on these tabs and you can slide it out, so it's easily changed. Anyway, so I looked on the back of, this is the one out of the cooker I bought, not the module I bought on eBay, which is now in the cooker. But it's quite similar, it's slightly different. The older one has a white PCB. I'll show you the pictures off of eBay, which I'll insert now. Well, the eBay one has a 3-pin header on it, marked ground plus 5 volts and reset. So I thought, oh, well, that must be how it's powered, by a 5-volt supply. So I wired it up to a 5-volt DC supply, turned it on, and nothing happened. I thought, oh dear, I hope it's not broken. Then I noticed that the one side of the relay was strapped across to an unpopulated bit, a bit like this. There's an unpopulated connector there. But the one across was strapped across to this AC live terminal. So I thought, I wonder if it works off of mains voltage. So I connected up the live and neutral to the mains, and it all burst into life. So this must just be this header must just be for test purposes, I guess. And you can't power it from the DC side. And I went around the menus, and it had the end time function on it. Amazing, so it was worth buying. It has added fully automatic programmable features to my cooker. So I'll show you now. They are slightly different, the displays. The new ones have a padlock symbol, bottom left, whereas the old one has a key for it being locked. And the new one has these two symbols on the right hand side, one for end time and one for duration timer and one for, no, that must be duration timer and that's start time, but they're not, only one of them's used because you can't get to the other ones in the menu. And this display doesn't have those on it at all. So I think the way to tell which version you've got is whether you've got a key symbol, which means you've got the fully programmable version, or the padlock, which means you've got the duration timer only version. So if I look in the menus here, press and hold that to unlock it. Then you're in the minute mind divert mode. You press mode again and you get to the duration. So that's how long you want to cook for. And then if you just leave it like that and go back to the clock, it will turn off after that amount of time. So that's just doing duration timer. Put that back to 0. And then we've got the end, and this is the menu that's missing on the new version. So you can say what time you want your cooking to end. And again, if you just leave it like that, it will cook until that and then turn off. And then for fully automatic, you set both of them. So you set the duration to 1 minute, say, and then the end to a different time. And then when you go back to the time, you'll see the pot's not lit up here, the pot symbol. So that means that it won't start cooking until you get the duration time, length of time, before the end time, and then it will burst into life. And all these timers generally do, which is why you can easily swap them over, is there's a relay in there that controls the oven. So you've got 3 connections on both versions of this circuit board. You've got the AC neutral terminal, which a blue wire goes to. The one side of the relay, ACL1, which a brown wire goes to, and the out, which a white wire goes to. And then there's another one here which doesn't seem to be used, DET1. Maybe it's for some sort of detector on some versions. And it's very easy to swap these over. As you can see on this control panel, these holes in the bottom have 5 screws in them, which are accessible by opening the grill door. 2 screws there, 1 screw in the middle, 2 screws this end. Pull all the control knobs off, and then the top edge just has a couple of slots in it which engage in some tabs hanging down from the thing, so you can pull it downwards and the whole thing comes off. And then you can just swap your modules over. The buttons are slightly different. The new ones have springs, and I don't quite know how you manage to slide this in. You might have to bend these tabs and swap the whole thing out. Because if you try and slide it in, these springs catch on things. The old one has some plastic buttons here, which again you have the same problem with them catching. But what you can do is you can remove the circuit board from here, make sure you don't lose the little springs inside, and then you can slide it in easily. And then to set the clock, you unlock the display by holding M. Press and hold plus and minus, and the dot starts flashing and you can change the clock. And then you press mode, and then you can cycle through the different tones there. Anyway, I hope that was useful. Thanks for watching.